Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, of course, depending upon when you consume your media. Welcome to Run It Back, episode number 101. I'm your host, Menelik Fernandez. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate the support and hope that everybody continues to find value in this. The premise of Run It Back, of course, remains the same, where we take teams that have played previously and we run it back, so to speak, where we talk about like how we game prep, how we make adjustments in game, how we evaluate ourselves after the game, all the little intricacies of coaching that are terribly niche that I love and really love jumping into. Pretty much almost since the beginning, I've been most fortunate to have coaches from the games that we explore jump in and lend their perspective, which I think has been just an incredible journey so far. And today, we continue along and it's no different. So today we're fortunate to explore a GLeague game, and we're taking a look at the Northern Arizona Suns versus Maine. This game, actually, we're going back a little bit in time here. It happened in January of 2019, January 12th, 2019. And I'm very, very fortunate to have a coach from the Northern Arizona Suns, Coach Brett Burchard, joining me today. Brett, thank you so much. I know loosely we've kind of connected originally through Brandon and Rising Coaches, and then I've been fortunate enough to meet you in person at some of the camps that you've worked. If you give me a second, I'll give you a little bit of an intro here. I'll try to make your introduction really warm. You were with the Phoenix Suns organization for the better part of a decade, I think would be the most succinct way to say it. You culminated in being the head coach of the Northern Arizona Suns, but you were also an associate head coach with that part of the organization, and then many various roles with the Suns, video coordinator, head video coordinator, communications, manager, operations, scout, you name it, you did it all the way through. So I'm terribly excited to be able to have you join, and welcome to Run It Back. I appreciate you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. It's gonna be fun to relive some of the GLeague days and some stuff we came up in those games. But yeah, it was a heck of a run with the Suns. 10 years at one spot. It's just unusual for anyone anywhere, really. So I was really fortunate to be a part of that organization and got a chance to grow from an intern all the way up to head coach in the G League. So it was a great opportunity. So
living the dream, man. Honestly, living the dream to like really truly working your way up all the way through type deal. It's incredible. Before we start, I'd love it if you could give us a little bit of a background on Championship, what it is, what you're doing with it, just how anybody who's interested could be a part of it, and what goes on there, please.
Yeah, so that's the work I'm doing full time now, is call it Championship. We do mindset training for athletes and coaches, help them compete and lead with confidence, resilience, humility, team chemistry, all the intangibles you're looking for to perform at your highest level. It's actually work I started to do as a player development coach with the Suns. Started exploring the mental side of the game. Why I was working with a lot of the end of the bench guys, right? 10-day contracts, the rookies, the sophomores, guys who are trying to crack the rotation. And just saw a gap there. We were doing so much on their bodies, in the training room, in the weight room, so much on the skill work on the floor. But then there was a gap there of like, how do I accelerate their improvement, their learning, their understanding? And then how do you help them capitalize on the moment when they finally get their chance? Like these guys, they're going to play 2-3 minutes and people are going to make a judgment on who they are. Right. And so how do you get into rhythm, get into flow? You're in a pressure moment. How do you perform well on demand? And so just really started exploring the mental side of the game there. And once my time with the Suns came to an end in 2020, it just pivoted and organized all that work I had done with the Suns on the mental side into a program and curriculum and a course now that we offer called Catching Confetti. Actually wrote a book in 2020 called Catching Confetti and put all that out there in an organized fashion. So that's the work I've been doing the last, 2 years now. And it's been fun. It's been really rewarding. It's fun to be able to impact your players in that sort of way. I mean, everyone teaches shooting and ball handling and X's and O's, but can you
Well,
get
so
more?
I was at a basketball camp once, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It was actually a coach's clinic, not a basketball camp. And if I remember correctly, I think it was at New Mexico. Uh, Coach Paul Weir was leading it. And when I was down there, they brought in somebody who was a psychologist, which is what my undergraduate was in. And he said something that kind of really stuck with me, where it was like, what percentage of the game do you think is mental? So people like they have their hands up and they're dropping their hands every 10%, right? So, we get up around like 80 and a lot of people's hands are still up. You get up around 90 and it's still probably the vast majority think that it's up. And it's like, now what percent of the game do you think you spend reps on mentally versus spend reps on physically? And like, the number's like 10%, maybe 20% at best type deal. It's like, if such a large percentage of this is mental, why are we spending so little time on the mental part of it, like the preparation and getting in? Like myself, and I know you're familiar with Jimmy Oakman, but we have a joke all the time about those bright lights. Like when you get in the game, those lights are real bright, right? So it's like if you're not prepared, you can be overwhelmed pretty quickly, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's not the coach's fault necessarily. It's like we weren't trained that way coming up, right? We weren't coached that way, and so
right,
really know how to include that. We know it's important, but we don't know how to. All we can say is you got to be tougher or like relax, calm down, but we don't really know how to help them do that. And so
exactly.
that's what I've tried to accomplish with Champion Shift and our programs is like, how do we teach coaches to teach the mental side of the game to their players or incorporate it into their program? And so
even just like tools to deal with even just like tools to deal with like anxiety or depression's a big one in sport too, like things like that. They're massive.
Exactly.
Let me focus a little bit though. I love it. I will definitely put a link to Championship in the description for everybody. But in addition, let's sort of move into where we are for this episode.
Yeah.
For anybody who might not know, give us a little bit of a rundown of the Northern Arizona Suns organization and the GLeague itself, and maybe what part of the season you're in when this game is taking place, the structure of the league, anything that you can sort of remember that would help set the stage.
Yeah, so the Northern Arizona Suns was the minor league affiliate of the Phoenix Suns. Originally, they were the Bakersfield Jam in California, and then the Suns bought the team and moved them to Prescott Valley, which was about 90 miles north of Phoenix, so a little bit closer. And if you're familiar with the GLeague, I mean, it's a minor league program, so the NBA team can assign players, there, and they call players up from there. It's a unique situation because not all of the players that I was coaching in Northern Arizona were affiliated with the NBA club. So we'd have 10 roster spots that are just generic G League players that anyone in the league could call up or take at any time. But then we would also have two-way players who go back and forth between the Suns and the Northern Arizona Suns. And then we'd have assignment players, so guys who are actually on NBA contracts and they'd get assigned to the minor leagues. And then, so that's basically how the G League worked. But there's a lot of like challenges in that, right? Everyone's got different goals and agendas. And as my dad would say, sometimes it's about winning. Like you're focusing a lot on development and helping each individual accomplish their goals. I like to call it the JUCO of the pro basketball. It's like,
there you go.
No one's there to get somewhere else. No one's there to be there long term. And so you're managing a lot of different agendas there. So I ended up the first year they came to Prescott Valley, I was an assistant coach. And then the second year, right before the season started, I got called up to the NBA club for the season. They had a coaching change. And then the last 2 years, the third and fourth year, I I went down and was the head coach of the G League team. And then in 2020, the Suns actually got out of the G League business. They ended up selling their team. And so that put an end to that franchise run. But yeah, it's a great experience to be like, that was my first experience as a head coach. And it's just, you just get thrown to the fire, right? I had reached a point in my career where I was like, I had so many ideas, right? I had my philosophy kind of written out and my thoughts organized and like, okay, if I ever get a chance, this is how I do it. And I was at the spot where I either needed like a wise old man to come in and say, this ain't going to work. Here's what you need to do differently. Or I needed to just try it and fail or succeed and see what worked and what didn't. And so going to be the head coach in the G League was that chance for me, like apply what you think you know to be true and see what works. And it was a learning lesson. I had 2 really challenging years as a head coach there for a number of reasons, organizational investment, talent on the roster, and then just my own like learning curve as a head coach. But I learned so much. You can go back and look at the records. We were not good either year for a lot of those reasons I just mentioned. But I had one game and we had like 4 assignment players or something. We had 4 guys anyway on the court with NBA experience, had played in the NBA game. And I'm standing on the sidelines and the game's happening. And the guys are just hooping, right? They're like scoring, they're getting stops, they're reading pick and rolls, they're changing plays. And I'm just like standing there and like, man, this is pretty easy. Like, you guys are killing it. And it was like in that moment, and that was the only game I had like that, where we just had that many talented players, like that level of talent on the court. And it hit me in that moment, like if I had been a head coach with these guys for 2 years, we probably would have won a lot of games. And I probably would have felt like I was a pretty good coach. But I didn't have to do really anything, right? The guys were just that talented. And instead, we had 2 years where we were struggling to score a basket. Like every single possession was a battle to try to score or to try to get a stop. And it forced us to work so hard at it, to be so creative, to be so resilient, to come up with new solutions, new ideas. And it expanded my coaching so much. And so it bruised me, right? 2 hard years coaching there, but I now can know like I'm such a better coach because of it. And just this game we're going to watch, like this was like halfway through my first year as a head coach, and going back to watch it to prepare for this, I'm watching, I'm like, holy crap, I'm like such a better coach now than I was then. I'm seeing all the things I would do differently, watching that game. But I only got
it's remarkable that
experience.
It's remarkable that you mentioned that, because like for me, when we met originally, obviously it was like through Rising Coaches when they were doing a lot of Zooms and all that. And I was on everything trying to get better as a coach. And then when I got back to the floor a little bit, because we had a very long pause in Canada, when I got back to the floor a little bit, it was remarkable to me how much I had changed without a single coaching rep. And like when you look back at yourself and the way that you used to coach, and you were confident in yourself at the time, when you look back now, it's like, man, I'm so different. Just like you said, it's like I probably wouldn't do that at all here. I would probably change this coverage, or I would maybe sub somebody here differently than I would have then. Like it is remarkable how much you change in a short period of time just by doing this and being the kind of person that is open to feedback and change and constant development type deal.
Exactly. It's that like tension of like, I'm sorry, I want to just add one thing to that. Like,
no, please do. Sorry.
It's that tension of like confidence and humility, right? It's like,
right.
Go do it. Like go for it. Be bold, be courageous, be confident, be assertive, do the best you know how. And then afterwards, be humble. Say, okay, I did the best I could. I'm sure I will get better. So what could I have learned from that? What could I have done
Right.
different? How can I change? And it's that, but you can't like go into it, be like, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to be quiet. Like, go try it, put yourself out there. And then learn from it and then experience. But if you don't go full bore, 2 feet in, you're not going to learn as much as you can. So
Do the
yeah, it's
best you can with the knowledge that you have at the time. And,
right. Exactly.
hopefully it works out from there, right?
Yeah.
All right. So give us a little bit of game preparation here. When do you start this scout? What does a scout look like at your level?
Yeah.
What do you focus on? Who does what? Give me all of this fun stuff.
Sure. So nuts and bolts of it in the G League, we tended to scout, I think, 3 games out. So we'd watch our opponents 3 games before we played them. NBA level, it was more 4 to 5 games. At the G League level, resources aren't quite there to invest that much into it. To go like 5 games out. And then teams are changing so much in the G League. Like rosters are changing all the time with assignment players and everything. And so like in 5 games, like the whole team could be different. And so not worth going that far out in scouting. But we would watch 3 games. And then one assistant would have the lead on it, and he'd do the prep and put together a report, put together a video edit, and then we'd meet as a staff on it. Usually do a bit of a longer discussion as a staff on what they do, what they're good at, what they're not good at, where we could exploit them. Maybe a longer video session so we can make some decisions on defensive coverages, things like that. And then try to do a more succinct version for the players. Just give them like what's important. It's heavy on the personnel. I just think like the people, especially in the G League where it doesn't get super complicated with your actions and sets, heavy on personnel tendencies. Who are you playing? Who are you closing out to? What are they likely to do? And then a couple plays that happen the most. For me, I think one of my strengths as a coach is like, this happened as I was with the Suns. My job was to like identify the opponent play calls and do that part of the scouting. And so I got really good at it. I could learn a team's playbook in about 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And so
I got most of those play calls from video. You could find them most of the time.
Our advanced scout would get a lot of the verbal play calls. But then like in the NBA, especially, everyone just like names their actions, right? And everyone's running the same stuff. So once you figure out their language, you can pretty much learn their whole playbook. And so I would just memorize their terminology. And then in the game, they're calling 2 up chest. I know it's a zipper into a flare because 2 up is the 2-man coming off a zipper and chest is the flare. Like you just learn their whole playbook. So anyway, I got really good at that. So my approach to scouting was give me as much information as you can about play calls, actions, tendencies, like when they run sets, how alignments will shift. And I can help. Like in the NBA, you can almost stand at half court. So I can pick that off and communicate it to the players. The players, I need them to know just a couple things, right, that are going to come up the most. And then I want them to be free and aggressive and not overthinking it. I heard somebody, I can't remember who though, maybe someone in San Antonio was like, really with this, the difference between a great defensive team and an average defensive team is like 7 points a game. So really in your scout, you're only trying to like, how can we win 7 points from our scout?
So I know you know him well, but I had Cody Toppert on, and I can't remember if it was during the episode or prior to the episode. He said something along the lines of the difference between like a Budenholzer and a Popovich in terms of win-loss percentage when the game is under 6 points is basically a coin flip, right? Like, so, I mean, at the end of the day, just like you said, if you can steal those couple extra points to get them within 2 possessions at the end, you've basically done their job and they have to execute and do theirs.
Exactly. So for the players, I just want to give them what happens the most, 2 or 3 things, And then if there's any changes to our base coverages, we'll identify those, but try to keep it really simple for them. I don't want to get it overcomplicated. Once you get to the NBA and you're in the playoffs, now like every player is memorizing the entire playbook of the other team. But at the G League level, regular season, that's not the case. It's not a fair expectation. So try to keep it as clear and concise as possible for them. And then I think the thing that gets missed a lot in scouting is, what are you going to do offensively? Most of the scouting is focused on how is the opponent, what plays are they going to run, and how are we going to defend them? But I want to say, how are they going to guard us? And where
that right that's a big clap, sir, because I think, like, I've done 100 of these. I think almost nobody focuses on that at all. Like, you might occasionally get something like, oh, Brett's the guy on the other team that we want to attack. But you very rarely get like, how, in what actions do we need him to be the guy guarding the shake? Do we need him to be the guy who's, the low man coming from the help? Like, what do we want that's specifically like, what's the match that we're going to go at? And how do we achieve that from the kinds of things that we run type deal?
Absolutely. I think this is where the biggest growth in my coaching has come. And it actually comes up in this main game that we're going to watch. I don't know if we'll get too much of it, but is like knowing who you're going after on their team and like understanding those where your advantages are. So this past year, I helped with a local college team here in Phoenix. And really the only scouting I needed was tell me what their ball screen coverage is. Because we were heavy in dribble handoffs. It's like, okay, are they gonna trap it? Are they gonna be in a drop? Are they gonna switch it? Are they gonna go under? And as soon as we knew that, well, now we know what to work on for the week, like what reads are going to be available. And then it was, let me know their substitution patterns, because for this team, we had a really good big kid. He was an all-conference player, but most teams didn't have a backup big that could guard him. So we would manipulate our substitutions. So he would play against their backups. And as soon as their backup came in, we're feeding it to him every single possession. So like, here are the 3 or 4 plays we're going to, as soon as that matchup is there, to exploit it. And I think people miss
this is what we're all trying to do.
Yeah. I think that people miss that, in this main game that we'll watch, like we got to the end and it's something we learned during the year, but if they're going to play a play, if your opponent is going to play somebody who can't defend, he needs to be in every single action that he's on the court. Like, don't let him get away with playing those people. Like,
so question for you. Like, I've got a bunch of questions in here about your whole preparation process, and we'll get to that. But
yeah,
specific question for you. If you've got something, whatever action it is, where you're picking on somebody because he's a pylon out there, you have no problem as a coach going to that same one 10 times in a row, 15 times in a row until they make some sort of adjustment?
100%. Absolutely. Like,
I love it.
Don't let them. I think this is the mistake a lot of coaches are making. Like, why not? Like, you find that, do it until now. I do get this. Like, okay, let's save it for the end of the game, right? Well, you get a clue in the first quarter, the first half. You're like, oh wow, that was really good. I'm coming back to that later. I will do that, right. Sure. But like, the biggest difference here when I was working with this college team this year is like, coaches would not exploit those things. I would see something in the first half, they'd run a play and I'd be like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. Like, we don't have a coverage for that. We're in trouble. And they'd never go back to it.
They never go back to it. And you're like, all right, thanks.
Let us off the hook. We had one game this past year with the college team, and they subbed in a guy, and I knew as soon as he comes in, we're calling this play, we're going at him. He is not allowed to play in this game. And we did it. First possession, blow by, layup. Next possession, horn sound, they took him out. The kid lasted one possession in the game.
The coach was like, nope, Come on back.
So that was a rare occurrence where that coach actually saw it. He's like, oh, that's not going to work. He ended up coming back in and they finagled their matchups, but like, don't let them get away with that stuff. Like,
I love it.
You see it in the NBA playoffs. It gets ruthless, right? Guys who've been playing all year all of a sudden can't play because those rotations get down to 7 guys because they pick that out. Like, if you can't guard us, you can't be on the floor. Like, we won't allow that to happen.
Love it. So let me ask some of the questions that I have from the whole process. You mentioned it's one big long video usually for your staff, and then you whittle that down to a smaller video, and you mentioned that it's heavy on personnel. Will all of your coaches do all of your games, or do you sort of like delineate for certain games, like, hey, this coach has this matchup, this coach has that matchup? You mentioned that you're 3 out. How many are you watching for that particular opponent? And then I think the last of those 3 questions that I had right now is just like, in terms of matchups and all that, is everybody getting all the same information, or is your top 7, 8, 9 or whatever getting a little bit more than everybody else?
Yeah. Okay. So we would split up, in the G League, there were 26, 7 teams at the time. And so we'd split up, or we play 50 games. So we'd split up those 50 games amongst the assistants. So we had 3 assistants and divvy them up. Usually, each assistant would just stay with one team. So like, we're playing Iowa and we're going to play them 4 times this year. The same assistant would have that team every time we play them. So we divvied up that way. And then the assistant would just focus on that team and he'd become the expert and then, share the information with the rest of us. And then I'm trying to remember the second question that you had.
Well, let's go to the last one about everyone getting everything while I work on remembering what the second one was. To ask too many compound questions. I apologize. It's become a habit.
When we give the information to players, they all get the same information. Now, what we have done sometimes in the NBA, we did this. We had more people, more resources, but we would do personnel groups. And so when we shared the personnel information, like, maybe everybody gets a little bit of everything, but then we would give the guards just their specific matchups and go in super deep, and give the bigs just their specific matchups and go into super detail. But once we deliver the information to the team, they're all getting the same report.
And let's go away from my second question because I've got another one. Sorry, scramble brain. You had mentioned that one of the things that may make a scout would be a change to a base coverage. Explain to me a little bit how that might work. Like, would you spend a few days working on the change, or would you have implemented all the coverage types in training camp in the beginning of the season? Like, how do players get those changes? Because I mean, most teams, I would say, are probably switch heavy, at least 1 through 4. And any sort of change is usually not implemented very well, because unless they've played it previously, they don't get a lot of time to work on it. How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, G League and college are different, right? G League, you get hardly, NBA and G League, you hardly get any practice time. And so you have to put those coverages in early. And we will look ahead in the calendar. So like training camp, we need to get these 2 coverages done or in place. And then as we progress to, we'll see the schedule. All right, that team's going to have a big, a really good big that we're going to have to double. So we'll look at our calendar and say, okay, let's start putting in our double team package here, so we're ready in 2 weeks when we got to play that team. We'll let the schedule dictate a little bit of how we roll out those coverages, but you do have to get a lot in preseason training camp. Now in college, you'll have 3 or 4 days to work on something, and so that gives you more time to practice and prepare for that. So we will do a base coverage that this is who we are, this is what we want to do most often, and then and then try to have one counter to it. Like, what's your backup plan or your adjustment? And I like to do like a normal coverage, a super aggressive coverage, and then just switch. Like, and most of the coverages we're talking about are related to pick and rolls,
Right.
So either like full drop or like bigs up to touch, depending on your level of big. And then you have a trap option, and then you just have your switching option. Like, if all else fails, we do that. Unless you have, everyone that can switch, and you just switch it all, and it's better. But
Having done this previously with a few other guys from the G League, I know that a lot of offensive stuff is dictated by the parent club or the big club, so to speak, or whatever. How much on the defensive side do you have freedom to be able to manipulate coverages and matchups and all that kind of stuff?
yeah, this is where it becomes a challenge. My philosophy with the G League was like, mirror the parent club as close as possible.
Okay.
Because our ultimate purpose was to develop people for the Phoenix Suns. And so if I signed a guy and I'm having him switch every ball screen, but Monty is making him fight over every ball screen, I'm not helping him, right? By playing. So I tried to mirror as much as possible. The challenge with that is the G League is different.
Right.
G League, you don't have a DeAndre Ayton, or it's very rare. You don't have like a lot of your fours are mainly basically threes. And so it becomes a little harder to mimic it exactly. But for the most part, I try to stay as close as possible to what the parent club was doing.
So could there have been times where you'd be in conflict, like, I should probably play this way, but the parent club doesn't do that at all, ever, would never touch that? So it's like there's a bit of a conflict in your mind as to how you'd want to deal with that?
Yeah, a little bit. But the only time it would really shake me is if I was asking a Phoenix Suns assignment player to do something differently, right? And so we could get into situations where it's like, I want to switch these. The Phoenix Suns wouldn't switch it, but I don't have any Phoenix Suns players involved in that, so it's fine. Let's do it. So yeah, that would happen occasionally.
That's interesting. That adds like an additional layer where it's like, instead of who is this person in terms of ability, it's also who is this person in terms of where they are assignment to a regular G League player, and how you involve them in that.
So like, DeAndre Ayton's going to be in a deep drop, right? Protect the rim. My big in the G League can't protect the rim like that. I need him up higher. But also my big in the G League isn't going to be playing in Phoenix. And so to ask him to be up higher isn't messing up anything, right?
Right.
Now the guard is on assignment from Phoenix, but nothing changes for him. He's still got to fight over the screen and get through and use high hands. So nothing changes with him. So I can make that adjustment fine, not hurting anybody. So
love it. Let's go from general to specific a little bit in terms of the preparation process. What, if you can remember, because we're going back a little bit, were some of the things that you wanted to key in on that were advantageous for you, like certain sets you wanted to run, or certain matchups you wanted to attack, or pace of play, how many to the glass, anything along those lines of just like what would be, different than a typical game plan that you thought would be advantageous here?
Yeah. So for this specific game, I don't remember completely this one. The thing I remember the most about this game is we were on a crazy long losing streak.
Right.
We had lost 14 straight games. And I mean, at that point, you're fighting for anything, right? Let's just get some positive momentum here. Let's get a win. Just to break that monkey off your back, right? And so, I remember like at this point, the challenge was always, do we try a bunch of new things just to get a win, or do we stick with what we're doing and hopefully we get better at it over time. And there's not really a good answer. Like theoretically you say, yeah, just stick with what you're doing. Don't change who you are, get better. But like when you're in the locker room and like your players are like, you just working hard and you want to see them have some success, you're trying to like draw a little belief out of them in what you're doing. Or even like your staff, your training staff and your assistants are just like beat down because you lost so many times. Like you're looking for a way to win. And so I don't think with our group, we would make a lot of changes. If I remember correctly, we struggled we had a bunch of young guys, like rookies and sophomores. So hardly any vets. And so being able to change things on the fly and change from game to game, like really wasn't a good option for us. We couldn't do that without a week of practice. So it was like, stay true to who we are, like try to do it better. And then again, manipulate some things to try to steal a couple plays and hopefully, get some positive momentum going our way. And I think what I remember most about this preparation was like, we were close. The game before that, we had lost, we had the lead late and we ended up losing it. So at this point it was like, we're close, we're going to break through here soon. But that getting over that mental hurdle of, oh, here we go again, we're going to lose again. Like, so it was our staff and me and everybody, we were on lookout for those moments. Like, don't let a 6-0 run turn into a 12-0 run. Like, kill those right away. Once you see the body language start to like get discouraged, kill it. Like timeout, sub, pump them back up. Like we really had to pull them through that discouragement phase. So I remember that being a huge piece in this game. Now also, like Maine was, I think they shot a ton of threes, which rewatching it hurt us. They got a bunch off against us. And they had a big guy like Dallas Lauderdale, like a pick and dive threat that created a lot of problems with pick and roll coverages. So I do remember those couple tidbits about this game.
I think that's a really good segue into the in-game and the in-game adjustments, et cetera. What, if anything, are you and your assistants tracking on the bench during this period? Like what sticks out? You mentioned body language a little bit. I don't know if you guys do anything like PITs or whatever they're called, where it's the touches to keep things up. But like, what are things that really stuck out to you? Like, hey, we need to look at this metric because it helps us and it keeps us in the game. Whether it's on a box or whether it's what you guys are doing as a staff.
Yeah, I was never big into a lot of tracking data. I think in the NBA, it happens a lot because you have like 8 coaches and you got to keep them busy. And so you make stuff, but like, what is actually helping you? I'd rather than having all the assistants like doing this all game, I want them to watch the game, like watch our guys, coach our guys. When a player comes out, let's go talk to him, encourage him, teach him. If you're watching something, you see something, let's go share that with the people on the bench that are about to check in. Like I wanted the staff to coach and be engaged in the game. There would be some metrics that I could see tracking just because it gives you a sense of like how you're playing. People like to talk about deflections, if that's congruent with your defensive philosophy, paint touches, fast break points, those kind of things. But like the only reason you do that is to tell the team, hey, everyone knows you're getting killed in transition. So like,
I don't need a metric to tell me that. We all saw that happen.
Right? Like now it helped. Like, hey, we gave up 14 transition points, like to hammer home the point. But like, you kind of know when you're watching the game. Sometimes like people track kills, 3 stops in a row, and that can give you like a little juice to like, hey, get a stop right now because this is the kill. give you a little extra juice. My thing with the kills is like, if you don't score, then what does it matter? Like, you stopped him 3 times, but you didn't score 3 times, so nothing changed. So
we
I like
just removed 3 possessions each out of the game.
Yeah, like, so what? Right? I like to track sequences, like stop, score, stop, score, stop. That's how you build your runs. So like, we use that. Like, let's go. Let's get a stop, score, stop right now. So that's not a great answer to your question. I've never been huge into that.
I think it is, because exactly what you said about, I don't want my assistants doing this. Like the previous year to COVID, when I was fortunate enough to become an interim head coach for half the season, the 2 assistants I had were tracking something, but what they were tracking allowed them to still be able to watch the game and tell me what's going on, right? So like, I would have one person doing our rotations. So I would actually predetermine most of my rotations so that I would know I need to get this person 25, I need to get this person 31 type deal or whatever. And I would basically outline when that would happen during the game, but shy of a dead ball, he doesn't need to look down at that. And then the other person was play call results. That's all, right? So like, if we're in thumb, then I'd just tick thumb. And then if we scored, I'd tick score. That, like, no big deal. I can still watch everything that's going on. But like you said, I think there is a lot to having people on staff that can look and watch the game, and then when I need some help, articulate what it is that they're seeing and thinking out of it.
Yeah, I think those, what you just mentioned there, are probably my 2 favorite things to track, like rotations. How long has a guy been in? You lose track, like, oh man, he's been in for 9 straight minutes. Holy crap.
Yeah.
How that happened, or he's only played 2 minutes this half. How that happened. So tracking that, and then like, what's working,
right.
What plays are working or what actions are working. I think those are probably my 2 favorite things to track if I choose any.
Would you, with the minutes and all of that, would you predetermine anything as to like, this player needs this amount of minutes or needs to play at this time in the game? Or is it really sort of on feel from what you're seeing and what the matchups are out there?
Yeah, this is like, I think this is the biggest challenge of a coach every season.
I agree with you.
Like figuring out your rotation, and you're never finished with it. Like, you've never got it figured out usually. So I would try to script it out ahead of time to get a feel for it. Funny story, I did this in the GLeague. We were flying to Austin and we were struggling with our rotation. So I worked on a 2-hour flight to Austin, spent the whole flight mapping out our rotations. We land in Austin, turn on the phone, got a text. Our starting center was getting called up. 2 hours of work out the window. I had to start.
All right. Well, I should have just enjoyed that flight. I took a nap.
I really think, we actually got to the point one year where we knew who played better, just from analytics stuff, who played better in shorter shifts and longer shifts. So we would know 0 to 3 minutes, 3 to 6 minutes, 6 to 9 minutes. This guy played better in his 6 to 9 minutes. So he needed to play a longer stretch. This person got worse after 6 minutes, so cut him then. So that was interesting. Right. The other thing I think is even more valuable is pairings or groupings. Who plays better.
Right. I think that's probably the most valuable thing.
Yeah, these 2 guys on the court together, these 3 guys on the court together, those things mattered more to me. But I really believe in this when it comes to rotation. This is getting a little off subject, but 11 is impossible to play. You can't play 11 guys. 10 is challenging. You could do it, but it's hard, and you probably don't have 10 really good players to play. 9 is better. I like 9 better because we can start to shift people in, our 3s can become 4s, or we can go small, we can move guys along the line. I think 8 is the best number. you have a backup big, you have a backup point, and you have three guys rotating.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about 8 is you don't have two guys on the bench that are both subbing in at the same position. So like when you have 9, you have 2 wings sitting on the bench or 2 bigs sitting on the bench, expecting to go in when you take that big out. So I sub out my wing, and now I have to choose between 2 of these guys on the bench. And once I choose one and not the other, now their head starts spinning. Why did you choose him? What's wrong with me? Well, he did that. I'm better than him. Right. And now you've got conflict. If you have 8, I have a point guard, a wing, and a big sitting on the bench. When I take out the big, we know exactly which big is going in.
Yeah, you're going in. Yeah.
And so it makes the whole, so then you don't have to like map out your rotations. It's like when I want to take a wing out, I'm putting that wing in. When I want to take a point guard out, I have one point guard option come. So I think 8 is the best. When you get to playoff time, like you probably only have 7 guys who are good enough to win a championship. So you cut that thing down.
I actually think that's an incredible insight in terms of the way that you break that down. I've never thought of that. So for me, I really think there's only 3 positions in basketball now. Like we'll still use 1 through 5 just to be able to like identify people and all that. But like really 2, 3, 4 are similar in a lot of offenses in terms of what they're doing, right? Like you've got a trigger man, a 5 or your big guy or whatever you want to call him, who can also be a trigger man in certain instances. And then you've got 3 wing-esque players who can have different traits still. Like one could be a really good shooter, one could be a really good slasher, one can kind of do a little bit of both type deal. But I think those are really the 3 breakdowns in terms of the way that basketball is starting to trend. And if you look at like height charts and compare them to like positions and all that, you'll notice that the median height in the NBA at all 3 of those, or all 5 of the positions really, but all 3 of those spots are all decreasing a little bit because they care a little bit less about the traditional role of the position and care a little bit more about the skill set of the players and how they fit those 3 spots.
Yeah, exactly. I'm tracking with you. It's, to me, it's you got a point guard or a ball handler, you got a big, and you got wings.
Right.
Those are
right.
positions.
So final of the questions before I move into a little bit of the video here. Were you doing anything then? And I know that the GLeague schedule is hectic and you're always worried about the next matchup and like call-ups and bring downs and all that kind of stuff. But like, were you doing anything that would compare what the result of the game was or what the efficacy of the scout was relative to the result of the game, I guess, really? So, you know, like, I know a lot of people will do film after the game, like, hey, we didn't do this right. I'm a little bit more interested in asking, this is what we gave you in the beginning. Did we do what we were supposed to do? Was what we gave you correct? Did they align? Or was it more of like an execution problem? Or did I just give you gobbledygook goop to start and it was, you know, we weren't right type deal?
Yeah, that's a good question and probably should influence my post-game review a little bit. Like, why don't you go back and evaluate your scout? Like, how good was your scout? What I would do on a post-game review is like make some notes. What hurt us? Where were we effective? What matchups were good for us? You know, what actions did we not cover?
Right.
In a post-game film session with the players, we will bring up like scouting report mistakes. You know, we told you to, you know, go under on this action and you didn't go under on the action. That was a mistake. So that little bit of accountability that would happen in our post-game film session.
Right. I think it builds trust too.
Yeah. Yeah. I like your thought there of like, let's evaluate our evaluation, you know, like let's evaluate our preparation. You know, the interesting thing with that is like so many times you go into the scout, which is why I'm not huge on giving them a bunch of plays and actions, but you go
Right.
into a scout and tell them like, hey, here are the 3 plays, and you walk through them in your walkthrough or shoot around, and then
Yep.
they never run those plays in the game. You're like, what? We just spent all that time, going over this play, and it never came up. So like, let's just focus on actions, personnel, what happens most often. But yeah, I like your idea there of evaluate your scout. How accurate were you? And what would you do differently next time?
Like it. I'm ready to move into a bit of film. As I do that, I'm just going to let you know I didn't mention in the pre-speech with you. I'll play each clip 2 to 3 times. The first time, just everybody can kind of take a look type deal, see what's going on. The second time, I'll sort of fumble through a description because some people listen to the podcast instead of watch it. So I'll try to get through one. And then the third time, as I said to you, really just anything that you see. Why are you running it now? How did you defend it? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Anything is okay. Basically, we just want to have a film session with you,
Cool.
and you sort of tell us what you see from that. So the first clip that I pulled is just the first clip of the game. They win the tip, and it's their first set. So we're moving in here, and if I remember correctly, it's a little flip action up top. Sorry, Brett, the playback speed is okay here for you?
Yep.
This is good?
Yep.
Awesome. A little flip up top, hand off to the corner, and it turns into a wing ball screen, which is almost sort of at a step up angle, interestingly. I don't think they set it very well. Your low man's pulled all the way in. For anybody who's listening, they're attacking from the offensive left wing, get into a little bit of a paint touch, second side, corner 3. It's contested. They miss. What do you see? What do you like? What would you do different? Any of those fun things here? Let me actually set the in here. So I'll keep playing this while you're talking.
Yep. So like a little bit of miscommunication here, like run into each other. But stop it here. We're going to ice or down side ball screens. And then we had made the decision this year, or with our bigs, that we wanted to be up. So at the level of the screen, impacting the ball. I didn't want that. Neither one of our bigs were rim protectors necessarily. So I didn't want that ball coming all the way down into the paint and challenging them. We wanted to stop the ball up there. If you do that, well, now you have to commit weak side guys to the tag, which is where you see the low man under the rim and you see the guy at the nail to tag the roller. Yep. Now, here's an interesting piece. In this particular game, if you go back and watch it all, like they got a ton of spray threes because we were heavy tagging the roll guys. But the mistake we would make a lot is not as bad in this clip, but we were in this particular season, we were trying to tag the big twice. So I wanted the nail guy to come over and hit that big as soon as he came out of the roll. So bam, let's hit him right there. And the pick gets rejected. So now the nail guy gets out of there. But we wanted to hit him early and then hit him again late. And then I liked the closeout here, Hollis on the low man, like early stick hand. We talked a lot about like go out with your hands high, take away shot and bang, bang pass, and then drop your hands and cover the drive. So many people will close out and then raise their hands to contest, which brings you out of your stance and jumping at shot fakes. So we want to close out high hands, taking away vision on the shot and pass, and then settle in to cover the drive. So it was a pretty good closeout contest.
The stick hand, did you have any sort of preference, which hand based upon where they were on the floor or which hand they shot with? Was there anything there?
No, we would emphasize like no middle drives. So preferably to close out on the top side, but we wouldn't just, determine right hand, left hand. We wouldn't get that specific.
And with the double tag, was that an in-game adjustment often for you, or would you always kind of stick with it?
So that's what we did with our coverage this year. We wanted the nail guy to tag him hard, like right out of the roll. Don't let him get ahead of steam. Because the issue is it's all about the big, right? If you commit your big to the ball, like we're doing here, well, now you have to have help on the roll. Like you got to give
Right.
him a chance to recover back. And so if we would hit the roll man right out of the screen, he could, what are they always telling the bigs to do on offense? Get behind the roll or get behind your defender, right? The big, you're saying, don't let the roll get behind you. So we're going to stand them up right at the point of the screen to give our big a chance to impact the ball and then retreat back and recover. Now, I've changed a little bit on this. I think I would not commit two to tag on the ball now. I would tell the nail guy, you can take any pocket pass, but his responsibility really is the X out. We'll commit the low man to the roller, and the nail guy's responsibility is to take the first pass out, which ends up happening in this situation.
Your first set going the other way. So obviously they miss here, and let me send an in for anybody who's listening. It's basically five out alignment. I would call this the lay down. I don't know if you guys have a different name for it, but basically both sides set pin downs, and it's a Chicago type action where we're blasting from the offensive left side. We're coming off this handoff, looking to attack any sort of switch or anything that happens there. We don't actually hand it off, and we one more to the low screen, and we turn it into a low ball screen on the empty side. We do get a bit of a switch. We attack their big and shoot sort of a paint two, which we miss. Talk to me about why you're running it, what you're looking at, all those kinds of fun things, please.
Yep. So for starters, you said this is our first play of the game. I am not a believer in drawing up a first play. So many people do that, right? Like, here's our first play of the game. And it's really like a pet peeve of mine. Like, this is how every game starts, right? They win the tip, they run their little secret play and may or may not get a shot. We get the rebound. Stop, hold on, find the point guard. Everybody gets set up. You run your sneaky like trick play. And then after that, now the game just plays. Like, we just spent 2 possessions of the game. Like, no, if we get a rebound, let's go. Let's attack.
Right.
Or I really like, our first play of the game, I want all 5 guys to touch it. So what is your flow offense? What is your thing that gets everybody moving and engaged and involved? Like, let's get everybody into the flow of the game rather than like, oh, I'm going to sneaky get a lob dunk to start the game. Like, let's get the flow of the game. So this was basically our base offense, right? After a miss, we're going to run 5 out, swing it through the big, and then play, we called it zoom action, either side.
Right.
And that's exactly what they got into. The big chose to not hand off the first one. Stop. I really like when you do these like 5 out or zoom actions, usually the most effective part of it is when you get a 2-man side. So how we rejected the first guy, he cuts through, clears out, and now we have a side ball screen with 2 guys on an empty side. And I think this is where you're going to get most of your good shots. I'm not crazy about the look we got here, but they switched it. Our big was okay at like drawing fouls, not a great post player. And so we get a little shot in the paint. Not crazy about the shot here, but it's what it is.
Would you have something like a shot selection discussion with your players? Like talking about the hierarchy of shots and high point per possession, all that kind of stuff. Would that be a one-time discussion, an ongoing debate? Like, how was that sort of disseminated to your guys?
Yeah, it's like one of the biggest challenges, right, of coaching, having this shot selection. We would make it clear early, like, here are the shots we want to get, right? Rim, corner 3, above the break 3, free throw line. Those were the 4 we wanted to get. Stay away from the mid-range, try to get in the paint. Right. How I framed this conversation was, most of the time when you take a mid-range shot, if you were a little more patient, you would have had a better option. So
Okay.
you use the ball screen and you drive to the elbow and you pull up and shoot. But if you would have taken one extra dribble at the elbow, the roll man would have had a chance to get into the paint, draw a tag, and you could have kicked for an open three. Or the roll man, you just outran the roll guy. And if you would have been a little more patient, the roll man would have been there. You could have thrown it in there for a lob. If you would have hesitated at the elbow, you would have got the big to commit, and then you could go around him. Like most of the time, I think the mid-range shots come out of a lack of patience and ability to read what else is happening. So that's how I would train it. Like, I'm not saying don't shoot that shot. I'm saying if you would have been better in your pick and roll read, you would have gotten a better shot. So let's teach the pick and roll read better.
Got it. The next one's just a defensive clip. I think this is a little bit of a tough action to guard. It's just a pass and flip back type deal. This is a pretty common set in the NBA now, which then turns into top ball screens so that you're headed towards the single side. And then he attacks and, lobs it up. There's a late tag happening or no tag happening almost here. Talk to me a little bit about this flip action into the ball screen, and in an ideal world, what you would like to see happen here.
Yeah. For starters, on this clip, if you see at the very beginning, like the guy's wiping his shoes as they're coming down the floor. Like, this is such another pet peeve of mine. Like, yo, the action's happening. Like, get ready. Like, get in your stance. His man's cutting towards the ball and he's wiping his shoes. Like, get in a stance. Be ready. There's a problem going on here. So the flip action, we did not switch it. It was a 1-4 flip. You could have switched it. I think we were trying to not switch as much. Our pick and roll coverage here, the big, I believe, should have been up at the point of the screen. Like, I wanted to impact the ball. Right now, he's kind of standing in no man's land. I want to impact the ball at the point of the screen. Don't let the guard get down into the paint.
Right.
Don't let him turn downhill. But he comes off of it anyway. You can run it. Oh, I missed the beginning. So he comes off of it, and now our guard gets hit, and he's not going to get back. So you call it a veer back, and his job is to just take out the roll man. And he's got to be super physical. It's going to be a little on a big, like, just get into his legs, ride him out of there. If they throw the lob, you might get called for a foul, but like, you got to get super physical here and veer him out.
So on the veer back, I got a question for you. I mean, he's taking the long way around, and I've heard some teaching points like, get into their legs, get around as much as possible, rope the waist, any of that kind of stuff. Like, who gets to call when that veer back happens? Is it the screen defender or is it the ball defender?
It's the person who decides it.
Okay.
Right. So if you decide it, you have to communicate it. Right. So if the big says, I'm committing to the ball, you have to communicate it. Veer, veer, veer. If the guard says, hey, I ain't going to get back, you have to communicate your decision. You got to switch, 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 switch. So whoever decides it has to communicate it.
Love it. And then my last question on this one, you did mention that you were a double tag team. You wanted to go high and low. On this, neither one seems to tag.
Right.
Had you made a change, or is this an eye twitch moment where you're
definitely a mistake. And so in this scenario, right now we have our little point guard who's shorter than 6 feet, trying to veer onto their big. What I would have loved to have happened, a nail tag to hold him up, but the low man has 4 responsibilities. Okay? He's the ultimate tag on a roller.
Yep.
He is he fixes mismatches. He is the last help on a blow by drive, and he communicates and takes back cutters. So those are the 4 responsibilities of a low man, right? He helps on blow by drives. He's the ultimate tag on a roller. He fixes and kicks out mismatches, and he communicates and takes cutters. So right here, there's going to be a mismatch, he should step up and take the role and kick out the point guard to the wing. Say, or to the corner, whichever one how they want to fix that. But
So,
he should be in there.
Ideal world, he's here.
Yep.
And then this guy's I guess half and goes to whichever one this guy doesn't go to. So he could go or there, depending upon.
Yep. He would, the nail guy out there would probably take the first pass. Like if we were trying to scramble out and they passed it to one of those perimeters, he should take the first pass. But you know, the low man, he's not doing any of his responsibilities, right? He's supposed to tag the roller, which he's not in to do, and then he's supposed to kick out the mismatch.
So in a perfect world, let me see if I can summarize accurately. The guy that is the wing defender at the elbow is taking the first pass, and the guy who is the veer back switch, the original ball defender, is now I guess he becomes the beaten ball defender who takes the second pass out of anything.
Right.
Got it. What do I got here? This is another one where it's guarding an under or rescreen type action. So they come down, they're just in a 5-out, turns into a drag screen. You guys go under and they get nothing. They twist or rescreen and whatever your terminology is for it. And they start attacking that left elbow, which again sort of turns into I guess an emergency switch where that dropped big is on it. He gets to his right hand, makes it pretty hard, semi-contested layup. Talk to me about what you see, what you like, what you don't, etc.
Yep. So under all drag screens, unless you're guarding Steph Curry or Dame Lillard, you know, get under drags. I just think it's too hard to like jump in an ice or really get a good coverage. So we just go under drags. Most people, when you go under, they're going to flip it and rescreen. Right. You know, our big, he's in a drop. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not remembering correctly. And we did have him in a drop, but I thought we would have him up higher to impact the ball. So the ball doesn't get down that deep into the lane. Right. This is tough. Now you're in a single side tag, right? And that guy on the guarding the corner is in a tough spot when they go into single side tag.
I got a question for you. It's a terminology question for you. Would you use flip, twist, and Ricky interchangeably, or do they have different meanings for you? Because I've heard them used interchangeably, but for me, a flip and a twist would be interchangeable, and a Ricky would be off ball. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on those ones. So like you did actually use flip on the handoff back. I guess maybe that is different for you. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So handoff, flip it back to him, and then rescreen the under is what I would say. When I hear flip the screen, I hear them like you come up on the right side and flip to the left side. Right. Or you come up into a side pick and roll and you flip it into a step up. Yeah, that's how I tend to hear it in my head. Ricky just like off the screen, I think.
Huh. Because those ones, like to me, they kind of all sort of have the same thing, but then I've heard them used differently, where it's like one is specific for the approach, where you approach on one side and then flip it or change it to the other side. Another is when you're making contact and screening, but they go underneath, so then you turn it so that you're going to rescreen in the other direction. And then the third one is like no ball involved. You're setting a pin down, you don't get what you want, so you turn it into a flare type deal or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's all semantics, right? There's no like Webster's dictionary for basketball.
Right.
So, like, whatever you understand it as, that's where, like, you know, when you get with your team at the beginning of the year, you got to be really clear on your terminology and what you're doing, so everyone's on the same page and speaking the same language.
Love it. One more guarding one. I'm sorry, don't hate me about the guarding stuff. So we get to we're in a 5-out action again. We reverse and we go into pin down handoff. So Chicago type action or a zoom, whatever you want to call it. And then it basically turns into a wing ball screen at that point where they're going towards the double side from the left to the right on the floor, tack through the nail, hit the roller, probably the wrong pass and hitting that roller because your tag is all the way in, but then they throw it back to the wing player who misses the uncontested shot. Talk to me about, your rotation, what you see, what you like, what you don't.
Yeah, the video skipped on me. Can you just play it from the beginning?
Sure.
And
I'll try my best to just let it go smoothly one time.
Yeah, it's not playing for me just yet.
No, interesting. Sorry about that.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so I believe it was zoom action out of the corner.
Yeah.
To guard zoom, we would probably want to like lock the corners. So stop. There you go. Yeah, can you back it up to where they screen the corner guy? This is a good conversation about how to guard zoom. A little bit farther.
Are we good or more?
Just back it up a little bit farther where the big still has the ball and they're setting the down screen. Yeah, perfect. So perfect. Yeah. Perfect there. Yep. Okay, so what we were saying this year, I think I still like it, is lock and loosen. So the corner guy locks and the screener, the guy at the elbow, loosens. And so the corner guy is going to lock his man and then he navigates that screen. Usually you have to go over the first and then you can navigate the second, over or under.
Right.
The elbow guy loosens. And so if they tight curl the first one, it's an automatic switch. The elbow guy is loosened to catch the switch, and the other guy's now on top to make it an easy switch. So we would lock and loosen there, navigate the first screen, probably have to go over, and then navigate the handoff over, under, depending on who it is and where it is from there. We go under the first one. See, this is the problem. You go under the first one, stop, look how much separation there is. Right? You're screwed. He can bounce back, shoot the three. Now you're chasing him. We want to get locked and connected. So now you can dictate the possession. And then you can shoot the gap on the last one at the point of the handoff. But right now he's too far separated. Now we're chasing. And now he tries to go over this one, which puts the ball handler downhill. I mean, he's just all over the place, right?
Right.
And Gig's not up at the point of the screen stabbing at the ball. The ball look, on a pick and roll, if you let the ball get right into the middle of the paint like that, you're screwed, right? Unless you have Rudy Gobert, you're in trouble. So I'm a big believer, like you got to impact the ball outside the paint, even farther, maybe at the high school 3. Because once he gets down in there, now your tag, there's pressure on your tag. He's got the option to spray it out for 3, to shoot a floater. He's got all his options. So I want to impact the ball higher. Don't let him get that deep so he doesn't have all the options.
So you do pull all the way in and tag and prevent him from shooting on this pass back out, which I guess is a pretty good pass. Are there any options for you within your system, or is this
at this point it's scramble, right? So like 14 could like make an extra effort and go out. 8 could have like multiple efforts and close out. But like, to me, if I'm like breaking this down for the team, the mistake isn't on the closeout. The mistake happened before that.
Right.
Navigating the zoom action, and it was the big not impacting the ball early enough.
Love it. And then this is the last guarding one. I promise you for a few. The next are all your offensive sides. So this is just kind of a unique action. I thought I don't see this often. So we get what really is double up top, right? So 77 coming across, and then they roll out the first and turns into just kind of like a downhill against your big. So maybe not that unique a way at first. I think what I thought was unique about it was that it was a pin away into the 77 type action. So
Yeah.
their big actually sets that first screen. So it's almost like a ram screen or a delay screen happening first, and then turns into the 77 or the double drag action. The player's moving from right to left from anybody who's listening to it. And then the drive happens to his left, spin back right, and he doesn't end up making it. You get a really great late contest block out of it. But talk to me about that action, that screen away into the double drag.
Yeah, so it's navigate the screen away, right? Going under that was fine. If you chase that one, he's going to turn downhill. Turns into a double drag. This might have been an emergency switch because he got hit on the ball screen. It's possible it was a game plan switch, like size 1 through 4.
Right.
Switch. And then at the ball screen, just KYP, we were going to go under because it was a non-shooter. And then we settle them down, right? You play one-on-one, get in your gaps, get in a stance, keep the ball in front, force a tough shot. Yeah, I thought that was done all right.
Like it. We got a chin to ball screen action by you guys. So the ball moves sort of 4 out, 1 in principles. The ball moves from right to left, slot to slot. And then we get the chin action to the back screen coming through, create the double side on the left side of the floor, then turns into a step up ball screen. He attacks left. We roll the big, and then they hit, I guess, what would be the shake, really, or the lift from the single side. And he shoots a basically semi-contested 3 and knocks it down. Talk to me about the action, what you see, what you like.
Yeah, very basic, right? Chin action. Most people know it. What I liked here was that the big flipped the screen to turn it into a single side tag. I don't know if he did that on his own or that's what we had changed the play to, but enters the ball. It's nice if you get a better back screen at the top because it creates help and confusion. I think he kind of whiffed on the back screen. Yeah. But then flipping the screen's good, and now they're going to switch it. And good relocation, like the guard coming out of the corner, find a window. The ball has eyes, so make sure the ball can see you. Pass was on target, got a good look for a good shooter. Probably bad defense on their part. If they're going to switch, there's no need to tag a roll or anything. So he should have been able to just close out to that. But yeah, we got a good shot out of it.
It's interesting because you say kind of basic. And I would agree, probably like chin is a fairly common action, but the amount of times, like I'm currently coaching like AAU and club, and like the amount of times that we just can't get this right and have to go through it. It's like, this isn't basic at all any longer, Brett. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for calling me out on that. Cause it's probably like unfair, basic in the NBA ecosystem. But for sure, not universally necessarily.
And Trey mentions in the chat, agreed, man. Not so basic for us anymore. We get a lot of error just in the simple stuff, like the missing the screen is par for the course.
Hey, I would say, like, if you go back and watch this game, you're gonna be like, this dude's a good coach. Like, this is terrible, right? Our execution's bad, it's sloppy, our spacing's crap. So like, there was a reason we lost 14 in a row, right? It's like. No pride, ego here. Understanding like we didn't execute all of it well either. So.
Love it. The D3 level, they didn't get it. Yeah, I hear you, Trey. So this was one that I found interesting. So you guys gained possession right about the 34 mark. I know a lot of the time 2 for 1 is actually kind of referred to as being 33.
Yeah.
Just then. In terms of time on the shot clock, I found it interesting that you guys chose not to go for the 2 for 1. And I was wondering kind of how that works for you in terms of, is it something you're always trying for? Is it a play call from the side where you're mentioning it? Do you let your players decide? And then as far as the actual play goes, we end up for round 1. We work it down a bit. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And it actually ends up becoming a 4 low. It started 4 out, 1 in, but then 4 low, we ghost the first one, turns into a ball screen. That ball screen attack is to the right side. They get the switch. He repenetrates towards middle and is able to sort of flip up. Not a great shot, but you offensively rebound and put it back. 9 seconds left on the game clock. Talk to me about the 2-for-1 and all that kind of strategy in there, and then the set itself.
Love going 2-for-1, especially at the end of games. I'm guessing this situation, since we got the ball at like 34, didn't feel like we had enough time to get a decent 2-for-1. So instead, just run it down. This was kind of an end of clock or end of game set for us. Your first option is this ghost. If they mess it up, you could pitch to that guy and he stampedes downhill. You could also pitch to that guy. We would go dribble handoff with the corner, come back to the point guard, and then run a step up. This option, it looks like we were just trying to ghost it and then get into a middle pick and roll.
Right.
And I think that's what ended up happening. And I like this idea, like on the switch, what he did is drive it back where you came from. And so the switch happens and they're going to jump out aggressively. Well, the big still roll and you drive it back at the guy who switched off of you. And now there's miscommunication for them. Are they going to switch again? Are they sticking with theirs? Usually the big, so I like that attack against a switch.
So Brett, I got a question for you. Is a lot of that a good player making a good play, or is that something that you would work on as one of the counters to the switch in there?
Yeah, we would for sure work on it. I think this is probably a good player making a good play. We would for sure, though, especially as we go to play, Houston or RGV, we know they're going to switch everything. Like we're spending a few days on, okay, here are your 3 options for attacking the switch. We were talking about earlier, when we start game planning, all right, tell me what their ball screen coverage is. And then we know what our counters are. And so, we would definitely work this into our practices of, if you're going to be a heavy ball screen team, you better know the options against drop, against up to touch, against traps, against switches. You got to know your reads and counters.
And so what would that look like in terms of what you give your players? Would they get like a legend that basically is something on paper that says like, hey, here's one coverage, here's 2 solutions, here's another coverage, here's 2 more solutions? Would they get film, or would it just be playing in 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, whatever the case might be, in some varied small side game?
I would have created situations in practice. So either in training camp or throughout your practices, in our offensive breakdown segment today, we're going to talk about attacking switches. And we work on 2 or 3 options, and work it into practice. And then we go into the game and I show them film, say, hey, they're switching, so use these 2 or 3 options. And in shoot around that morning, like any of our shooting games or any of our offensive breakdown stuff is going to be related to switching. Maybe in your pregame warmups, if you have like a guards bigs breakdown as part of your pregame warmups, we're going to do our switching options in that. So we just ingrain it in their mind, like this is the action you're going to use tonight.
The next one is Spain pick and roll variation. It's start of the 4th, so later on in the game. And I mean, basically come down like 5 out. Alignment is how you run the floor. We flip the ball to the offensive right slot. We bring it over towards the left slot and then give it back. So nothing sort of worked out of transition, I'm guessing, is what we were looking for here. And then we go, first ball screen. And as he comes off, we get the second one, and it's kind of ghosted out. And we throw it in behind for the drive shot option. We don't actually end up with something good out of it. He kind of loses the ball at the elbow. But talk to me about the Spain pick and roll, and that second screen being so low, especially, was kind of unique to me.
Can you play it again? It didn't play for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let it go. I'm sorry. I chopped it up a little bit while I was going through here. I'll just let it play through once or twice for you.
Just waiting. It's still, it's frozen for me.
Any better yet?
No, it's still stuck.
I'll tell you what, here's what I'll do. I will stop the share and reshare. Maybe this will help. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again?
Yeah. You could work in IT.
That's it. I've got it.
Yeah, let it run. Let it run.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so yeah,
here's where we get into it. Almost like a shallow cut Spain pick and roll.
it froze on me again.
Did you get it at all, Brett?
No, nope, it froze on me again. We got a little farther. And I don't remember enough to just talk it through like I did remember.
So, I mean, basically what we do, and I'll talk it through, hopefully we end up getting something, and I'm sorry, maybe this is my internet not being great right here. But we end up with the ball at the point, you got corner, and you make like a looping shallow cut who ends up being the Spain screen and the Spain pick and roll. You get 21 is your ball screener, and you get a dribble drive attack from number 30 attacking to his right. And then the pop in behind is from 14 who makes the shallow cut.
Yeah.
That Spain screen, in my opinion, is actually pretty low. I'm used to, at the college level at least, setting it in and around the nail. This is almost like at the second hash mark and doesn't fully make contact. Pops in behind, shot drive option, tacks that left elbow, sort of misses the shot.
Cool. I saw it that time.
Okay.
Here's my guess is start of the fourth quarter. This was an ATO play.
Right.
We were gonna run. And I will say this: I am not a fan of the Spain pick and roll. And for this reason,
very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have never been able to get a team to run it effectively. Like, it looks really cool, and NBA guys do it and make all the reads, but I think it is a hard play for an offensive player to read correctly. And
I would agree with
so,
that.
like, setting that screen appropriately takes a while to teach. For the ball handler to read who is actually going to be open takes a lot of reps, or a really, really savvy point guard and ball handler. So I actually don't use it. I don't know why we ran it here, because I don't usually go to this, because I think it takes a lot of practice. I think high-level NBA guys can pick it up right away and do it. And there's like so many options and variations out of it. I just think it takes a lot of practice to get any good at it. And so
I would agree, especially as the ball handler, like you said, like making those reads. It's, who's going to be open here?
Yeah. So I'm kind of surprised we did it, because I don't usually fool with it, just because I believe it takes so much practice to get good at it. So yeah, I think that, he whiffed on the screen. It probably started early too. Like, we were probably trying to get the play set up and he wasn't down there yet, and the ball screen already happened. So the timing was jacked up. He wasn't there to set the screen. Yeah. It was a busted play.
That's interesting that you're not a fan of it. I run a lot of it. I do agree that it is difficult for teams to be able to run correctly. I have noticed that at the high school level, especially, it just ends up being a pretty good play to drive the ball to the basket.
Yeah.
Because a lot of teams just don't even bother stopping the ball. And
I mean,
all
if
the way
you run it well, it creates problems for your pick and roll coverage for sure. It's something you have to walk through and deal with. But my reasoning for not being a fan of it is I've never been able to get a team to do it effectively. So I stopped trying.
I hear you.
Yeah.
This was just I wrote under out. It's a slide out that I liked.
Yeah.
So
high curl, pop the big. Yeah.
Yeah. Simple stuff that I like, really. Like, so I mean, almost like a box set alignment to start. We got the pin down and zipper cut, and the exception to the box was that the help side block is already starting in the corner. And then on this, we basically turned it into pin down handoff, like setup where it's a wide pin down, and then we're looking for that high curl coming off of it. When we don't have that high curl coming off of it, we hit the screener that set the pin down, and there's a wide open shot for you. Easy, I think, but overall liked it. Effective. Talk to me about wrinkles and how many times a game you think you might get something out of this.
Yeah, I like this action, and I just generally speaking, if you have a stretch 5, what a powerful weapon! Like, what a unique,
Right.
dangerous weapon. And when I'm saying a stretch 5, it's a 5-man who can shoot the 3, but he also is effective at guarding, like protecting the rim and guarding the paint. When I was with the Suns, and this was after he left, but like the role player that caused us the most problems in our game preparation was Channing Frye.
Huh.
Which is interesting, right? Like this dude would take up a whole segment of our preparation. At the time, it was still unique, but like a pick and pop 5, like he stretched the floor, but he was big enough to defend your post players. And so he was really hard to exploit. He caused a lot of problems. And this is what we have in this situation is a stretch 5. And so they're big. They're going to match up with a big guy, but the big guy doesn't want to leave the paint. He's supposed to protect the rim and stay in there. So we'll just pop him. We tight curled the pin down, pop him out to 3, and you get an open look.
Love it. I thought this was an excellent defensive possession by you guys. I threw it in there. It's early in the fourth quarter. There's a high ball screen. He rejects. You guys get over and manage to get back in front. Sort of a, I'll let it play, sorry, so that you can see it. Sort of a stunt recover type deal from the ball side help. Manages to close out, stay in front. Stunt and recover from the top side. Turns into a switch on the drive. They second side it. You're in the gap. You have high hands, great contest, end up walking away with the rebound.
Yeah.
Did it play smoothly for you?
Mostly, yeah. Here you go. Let it go. Let it go. Yep. High hand, no middle.
I just think this is multiple effort all over the
floor,
right?
multiple effort.
Like,
yep. So
I mean,
thing I loved, the stance of the guy in the corner at the beginning. We call him an active ghost. So you got to show your body and show your stance as if you're going to impact the ball, but you're really taking away corner 3. So stunt at the ball, recover on the fly. I used to tell our guys, we don't need you to steal it on the point of the ball, steal it on your way out. So as you're recovering, hands in the gap and steal that pass. And then more help at the nail, like stunt, recover. I think that's your defensive principles, right? We don't want to commit 2 to the ball. We want to stunt, recover. The 2 things I didn't like, the guy drove out of the corner and he drove middle. Would have preferred to keep him baseline. And then on the wing catch, again, drove middle. I would have rather closed top side and keep him on the side. But yeah, you're right. Like active in the stand, active in the gaps, stunts and closeouts. All that was really good.
The stunts and the closeouts, would they be specific to like to scouts, or would they just always be what your base is and very rarely you would change them?
Yeah, that's our base, right? In the gap, close out, stunt recover. And then some KYP, like you're guarding a shooter, so it's less stunt, more recover. You're guarding a non-shooter, just stand in the gap and stop the ball.
Right.
So yeah, we would make some adjustments, but the base there is what we're doing: stunt recover. And again, like let's try to make them not let them drive middle, but instead drive. But the good thing is these drives were necessarily penetrating drives, right?
Right.
They went middle, but they kind of went outside.
There's somebody there right away. I thought great defensive possession all the way through. I'm going to skip ahead just in the interest of time, just because I asked you for 90 minutes. We're a little bit over that already. So I'm going to go to the last 3 clips that I have. The first one, you'll notice that the score inverts here as we get ahead.
There we go.
But the first one is defending one of their horns actions that turns into a ball screen. So, I mean, basically, I would have called this horns chest. This is a really common set that happens here where you sort of slip out of that first one and get a flare screen going to the second one, but then turns into a ball screen. They second side it and they make a big time three here that pulls it to within 4. Talk to me about what you see. I think it's a fantastic pass. But you know, what do you see? What would you like to have seen different, if anything? And just, you know, what are you thinking at this point in the game?
Yep. All right. So interesting point of the game. So stop it here. Before we got to this spot, we were losing. About 7 minutes left in the game. They took their big kid out, and I saw an opportunity to go small. So we went 5 littles, and we switched everything on the ball, and then we started scoring. They had no rim protection, so we were getting at the rim and scoring, which got us in the lead. I think this might have been one of the first possessions they brought their big kid back in. And so I countered by bringing my big back in. And it was also the first possession. And immediately, like, this is what was hurting us all game. And now they finally got their big back in and they have a rim threat. So he's able to pick and dive, put pressure on the rim, causing us to tag, opening up the 3. When they took that big out earlier, we were just switching everything. There was no tags. There were no open 3s. And so now they brought their big back in. So this kid, 42, he didn't score a lot, but he impacts the game so much because you have to respect his dive.
Right.
And it caused all these tags and rotations. In hindsight, so like we got this 6-point lead, they brought this kid back in, dove, and immediately got an open 3. In hindsight, I probably would have just, you know, had the guts to stay small. Who cares? Are you going to post up this kid? He averaged 4 points a game. Right. Go ahead, post him up. Who cares? We're going to switch everything. And if you throw it to him in the post, maybe he scores a 2. Maybe we swarm him and double him. But it takes you out of what you want to do. They don't want to post him up. Right. Maybe it would have hurt us rebounding, right? So we just have to be really strong there. But on this particular possession, if you play the pick and roll and we do what we're supposed to do, right? Low man's the ultimate tag. We're up high on the ball screen. And this is where we were talking earlier. Stop. Number 8 should have X'd out.
Right.
He should take the first pass out. And so missed. That made a long tag for the low man. You can't expect him to go all the way over there, tag the roll, and cover corner 3. So that was the mistake there. But really the mistake was me not staying small and just continuing to switch everything and opening up 3s.
So it's funny because in the email thread, we obviously talked about exactly this. You mentioned it. But I thought I could fool you a little bit with this clip and maybe you wouldn't catch on that it is basically the first one where you end up having to tag again where it comes back in. But haha, joke's on me. You got it right away. I mean, obviously it changes your coverage and what you have to do immediately.
This is what we were talking about early on, right? It's like how I became a better coach. Seeing this now, I'm like, you idiot. Like, why did you, for some reason, I felt pressure to match up with them rather than knowing what was giving us an advantage. And
right.
Staying. Now it's possible, like, we didn't have solutions for that. Like, we hadn't practiced enough with our offense, or, there's times that I've been in there and like, you want to go 5 smalls, but our offense can't function without a big. And so I can't do it, even if the big is playing terribly. Like, I have no one that knows that spot and we can function. So it's possible that we weren't really prepared for it, but like that changes the game, right?
Well, so the interesting thing about the conversation that you're kind of floating out there right now is that I think that a lot of coaches, and you mentioned this in the speaking part at the beginning, a lot of coaches are afraid to fail, and a lot of coaches are afraid to try things that are unconventional. So if everybody's moving this way right now, we're all going to steal from each other, and we're all going to do this. But it turns out that smaller lineups work a lot, as we've seen in the past couple of years, and the coaches that have had the courage to run with it. I mean, you won the game, right? You flipped the score from the last clip to this clip type deal, and it definitely was a run that had everything to do with the personnel that you had on the floor. And then they throw them back in, and it kind of changes the way that you play a little bit.
Yeah, I should have just stuck with my guns. Like, hey, you want to bring your big kid in? Fine. We're playing best without our big, and so let's stay with what we're doing best.
Right. Let's see how he guards our little then.
Yeah, exactly. Play a little chicken, right?
Yeah. 1-4 set that I like. We kind of showed this set a little bit in terms of something else we were talking about earlier. But you end up with a 1-4. You're taking it down. You got a 3-point lead. Why do you decide to go to the 4-low set? And then we sort of ghost out of the first one. We look to play through the ghost. We end up with a handoff to the left side of the floor. It turns into a step up attacking the right. We get a third side, a paint touch flip, which I think is a remarkable shot. So talk to me about what you see, why you're going with it here, and does it ultimately end up in the person who you want to have its hands in this set?
Yep. So I think the first time we saw this clip was at the end of the half.
Right.
And this is the same play. This is the continuation of it that I was talking about. Okay, let's see how it ends. All right. So I think what we decided is, like, we were struggling to close out games. You know, I told you we were on that long losing streak. And so what we decided was we're going to have an end of game package. So, like,
okay,
no matter what happens in the game, like when it hits 3 minutes, this is the play we're going to run. And so we wouldn't run this like flat set all game until it got to about 3 or 2 minutes. And we said, okay, with 2 minutes to go, we're running this every single possession, and we know all the options that are going to come out of it. And we'll probably get, like, with 2 minutes left, you got 4 or 5 possessions in an NBA game. So we're going to get the ghost screen once. We're going to get the dribble handoff once. We're going to get the comeback to a ball screen once. Like, we're going to get 3 buckets or 3 good shots out of it.
Right.
So this was our end of game package. They ended up running it all the way through. Now, in this particular game, I remember like, we identified early on RJ Hunter was the guy we wanted to attack. And so when we made our run, you know, if someone wants to go back and watch it, we made a run in the fourth quarter, every single basket we scored except for one involved him in the action. And that was like a very clear objective that we said. Maybe we said it pregame. I think we probably told our guys at a timeout in the fourth quarter, we want this guy in. So whoever he's guarding, I don't care who it is, he has to be involved in the action. It helps to have a smart point guard. So we had Rhett and Obasahan here, who was very good at manipulating the game and putting people in the right spots, and got RJ in the ball screen. Retton didn't shoot it, but it did cause someone to help. We kicked it out, got to stampede the closeout, and Juwan got a pretty good look for him. That's a really good shot for him.
Love it. And like you're saying, this part right here on the attack through the step up or the comeback screen, as you called it, this is a good player recognizing we still want to get back and go through attacking who we want to attack. I'm not going to shoot this one. I'm going to do what the game plan is, and we're going to attack the player that we want to attack.
Yeah, it turned out it was a great read on the pick and roll. Yeah.
Love it. Last one I have, you guys are up. It's 9 points. It's a side out by them. I'd call it almost like a 4-cross high type set. I'm just kind of wondering, at this point, are you, I mean, 9 points is not a lot in NBA G League with the caliber of player that you have with 35. Do you think that you've got it at this point, or are you still a little bit worried as to what could possibly happen? And then what do you think about how you played it? So they curl the first, curl the second, and then they set like an away screen, and the first person ends up coming back to the ball and hitting a really hard contested three. They do everything in like 2 seconds. What's going through your mind as the play develops? What's going through your mind before? What's going through your mind after at this situation?
I missed the very end of that. Yeah, let it play.
Sorry, sure. I'm playing it again for you.
Let it play. We're good.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was RJ Hunter who did hit it.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically, it's a curl, and then another curl, and then a pin away, and the first person who curled ends up with a wing three on the strong side of the floor.
They just threw it into him and he shot it, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah,
there's a little bit of chase that's happening because he curls off. Is it still not playing for you? I'm sorry.
I got most of it. Yeah, I got most of it.
So number 9 starts, and then he ends up with the ball.
Yeah. So to your point about like end of game situation, no, we never think it's over. Like, especially where we were in the season, we're like, we had a 21-point lead and lost,
Right.
So like, it's never over for us. And especially here, like that's a three that happened so quick. And in 32 seconds, you can foul, advance it. Like, you only need 2 seconds to have a good possession. So it's not over. At this point, we're telling our guys, like, no threes and no fouls. If they want to score twos, it's going to take them 5 possessions to catch up to us, assuming we don't hit any free throws. They're going to score threes. It's going to take 3 possessions. So no threes and no fouls. And we're standing right on him, right? And he hits it. Maybe the change I would have made, just looking at it now, is again, going small and being able to switch everything. We still have our big kid in there, and we probably, because right now, who cares if they throw it to him and score 2? The real issue is them shooting threes. So go small, switch everything on the ball. No threes, no fouls, I think is how I'd play that.
Talk to me about your state of mind when the ball goes through. How do you think about what's right for the next possession, or not how, but what are you thinking about for the next possession?
At that point, at this point, it's going to be, they got to score and foul. And so it's get the ball in bounds. What I like to do is at this point in the game is I try to stand right next to the ref the whole time. And so when they score, I would prefer to just throw it in quickly, rather than like, oh, stop, set up our press break, whatever. Like, let's just get it in bounds while they're still scrambling, and hopefully we have good free throw shooters on the court. If we can't get it in bounds, I'm going to be standing right next to the ref, and I'm going to give them a couple seconds to try it, to get it in. And if they can't, I'll call timeout. We can advance it, draw up a play, all that. But yeah, I like to give them a chance and just see how the play unfolds.
Unless anybody has any questions, that's sort of the end of the video clips that I have from it. I want to take a second or two and just say, oh, you do? Jump in, Trey.
Yeah, what's up, Trey?
How you doing, Coach Trey Montgomery? Sorry if I sound out of breath. I'm on the exercise bike while I'm listening. A lot of good stuff.
There you go.
Trying to capitalize on 2 things at one time. So I appreciate you. I thought it was a lot of good stuff. I just wanted to ask like 1 or 2 questions. The first one was the closeout that you were talking about, where you guys are open from as soon as the ball is passed, you guys are wide, high. Where did that concept come from? Has it been something that has been circulating around y'all's league, or something that was intuitive to you guys, or based upon, maybe how closeouts were done, earlier, and, you guys didn't have as much success? Like, where did that come from?
Are you talking about, where I said come in with high hands early? And then
Correct.
So originally came from Mike Longobardi, was our defensive coordinator in Phoenix. And he was big on like high hands to take away that bang, bang pass.
Mm-hmm.
The ones where they throw back and then throw into the big.
Right.
And then I got a sense of it just like watching our guys, like when you close out with your hands down, and then we want them to contest their shot, but then they raise their hands to contest and it takes them out of their stance.
Gotcha.
And so intuitively, my thought was like, well, let's take away the shot first. Like, let's take away vision. And then if our hands are already up, it's harder to jump and leave our stance as a shot fake, right? Because we're already extended just biomechanically, like our momentum's, we're not swinging our arms up and taking our body out of our stance. We're already high and then settle into to take the drive. Most people are going to catch, look to shoot first, and then drive second. So take away the shot first, then settle in and take away the drive. Is kind of how I thought about it. It takes some while to get it. Like you're gonna complain, gripe at them all year. Early stick can. But I do think it's the most effective way to do it.
We do a similar concept. Well, I was at Penn. I'm no longer at Penn. I'm transitioning to another Division I, but that was something that we did. We had one hand up early. And we kind of found a little bit of success, particularly because our league is a very good shooting league, and not exclusively a lot of great athletes. But I was just wondering if there was a true, like if that came from necessarily a lot of, mishaps or a lot of, just things that happened based on the fact that you guys were closing out and you guys didn't have success with that. So I was just wondering. The other question I would say is, I don't want to take too much of time. The other one I was just say, I think you kind of answered it when, Menelik basically asked the question of, do you guys give them a list of scenarios, like basically like because I know in the G League, you typically get a lot of guys who are really good at, either scoring the ball or they're really good at one thing and they're very good athletes, but typically the mainstay around the league is probably guys that they just don't know how to play basketball in the totality and they don't know where they fit. So I was just wondering, just like over the course of the year, is it constant breakdowns, constant things? And are they learning basically through the scout, or are they learning based upon some of the things that you guys do, extra beyond the actual game plan?
Yeah, if I understand your question correctly, I'm going to answer a few things here, and I think it'll cover your question. But you spurred on a couple of thoughts for me. For me in the G League, we're preparing guys for the NBA, and most likely they're going to be role players in the league, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to be the ones standing in the corner while Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton play pick and roll.
Right.
So what we wanted to train was shoot, pass, drive decision. When you catch it, are you shooting it? Are you passing it? Or are you driving it? And so we trained that a ton. Like everyone needs to know how to make that decision and effectively, quickly, correctly. The second thing we would train secondarily would be pick and roll reads, because the NBA is so heavy in pick and roll. Mm-hmm. And so we would spend a ton of time on pick and roll reads against all the coverages, drop, up to touch, trap, switching. Those would be the two main things that we would train and cover. Now, your team, I think how you organize your offense, like, you're either a heavy pick and roll team, you're a heavy splits team, you're a heavy pin down team, you're a heavy post up team. You may have all of those incorporated in your offense, but there's like one action that you do the most, mm-hmm. right? Like all of our offense is going to end up in dribble handoffs. And so we're going to train all the time. What are the reads and dribble handoff? If they go under, if they go over, if they switch, if they trap. And we're going to know all of the reads and counters to all the different coverages. Now, once we get into the game, all your guys need to know are, how are they going to cover it? Are they going to go under? Are they going to trap? Are they a switching team? And then which counters to expect. And then your players are going to know too, like, hey, I'm not a shooter. They always go under me. I'm going to get really good at those counters. And so I think how you build out your offense, like, what your primary trigger action is that's coming up most. And you just start building your reads and counters around that primary trigger based on the defenses. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah. No doubt. And do you guys do that? Again, is that based upon, like, again, during the the practice time that you have, or you guys like are outside of that, do you guys put them through like, hey, like, during your practice, you're going to work on your certain things. You're going to do your scout based stuff. You're going to do all that stuff. But outside of practice, are you guys doing like 3-on-3 stuff, or you guys doing anything extra beyond it? Beyond just like working with just the trainer stuff?
Yeah. All of your shooting drills, all of your offensive breakdowns should be taken right from your offensive actions.
I got you.
So, like, I'm not a fan of like, hey, let's just go shoot 50 spot threes. Like, you could do that, and guys will do that because that's what they know and that's what they're comfortable with. But like, I tell them, just get on your gun if you want to do that. Like, on my time, we're going to work on stop behind the dribble, handoff, and shoot, drift to the corner and shoot, So anytime you do your guards bigs breakdown, we are working on reads that come up in our primary triggers. And then you're developing it over the course of the season. Kind of like I said, like, I'll give them a few at the beginning. And then as we get into game plans and see different teams, okay, now we start layering more. And then by the time you get to February, you've seen every coverage you're going to see, and you've got all the solutions in your toolbox. I don't give all of them the first day, but we develop them as the year goes and as they're needed.
So do you find that the G League is more diverse than the NBA, or as far as like, different offenses or different things that you're seeing on a night-to-night basis, or is it very similar to the league?
Yeah, the G League is very simple. Like, because your roster is so transient, you don't have a lot of practice time, and the guys at that level aren't as they aren't as quick to pick up things as they are at the NBA level. So anything in the G League is much more simple and basic, more generic.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions.
Love it. So Brett, I want to take a second and say thank you so much for your time. First of all, I know we went a little bit over the 90 minutes that I asked you for, and I apologize. I'm a little long-winded, but and I also want to like just commend you. I think this has been great. I've learned a few things in here, and your mastery and the ability to be able to teach is clear to me. I'd also like to finish by saying, for anybody who's made it all the way through, please go check out Champion Shift. I mean, obviously it's how Brett is making his living now, but there's all kinds of fantastic things there in terms of making yourself and your athletes better from the mind perspective of the game, from being able to develop athletes for the psychological components of being an athlete, which is it's major for sure. And then as a special thanks, and I always end every show this way now, obviously, I want to thank everybody who tunes in, the coaches that jump on, the coaches that listen and provide feedback later. I hope you continue to find use in it. This started as an adventure for me in just being able to occupy some time during COVID, and has become something that has been really remarkable in terms of being able to learn from some of the best people doing it. And Brett, you are no exception. Thank you so much for sharing, and hang out after we stop the recording. Love to shoot the breeze for a little bit if you have any more time, but thank you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure.